numbers. I do have 4 questions. One of the bullet points mentioned electrical work, and I was curious if that would cover replacement of like the master control panel, because I know, Jim, you showed me how old that thing was.
Yes, and that's kind of what we're talking about, is that end-of-life equipment that I was showing you.
Yeah.
That's basically what we're talking about, is getting that, like all that electrical equipment replaced out, because that gets into the hardening and criticality of that wastewater treatment plant. So if that, for all intents and purposes, you're used to your house, but if that circuit breaker flips and it actually no longer functions, it's hard to go find a replacement part for that. But if we get that replaced, because it's beyond end of life, now you can go and get, you can relatively get that newer equipment.
Right. Okay. The second question I have would have to do with how are we in terms of planning on that state mandate on controlling our non-beneficial discharge?
It's in, if you look in the master list, it's in the list, and meeting some of these, like adding in additional filters and things, is trying to improve also improving, getting better effluent quality, that maybe we could do bring reuse out to public access reuse quality. And so it's kind of meeting those stages, but we're putting out some fires now so that we can get there and start working on some of those things.
What's the deadline on that one?
2031 or 32.
Okay, so we still have some time.
So Vice Mayor, if I may, we're also meeting as a beaches community with, across the ditch as well, to talk about this non-beneficial surface water discharge issue. I think we're scheduled next week, within the next couple of weeks, to meet as a group to talk about what we can do possibly together to meet that.
Okay, very good. I saw some questions from residents about the beach accesses at Hopkins and Davis, and I think that there was some thought of, I guess, taking from some ARPA funding to cover some of the repairs. Will that affect anything in your infrastructure planning if you use that bit of money?
I'm sorry,
For the repairing the accesses, the Hopkins and Davis.
I don't know if we can use ARPA funding for that. I'd have to check.
Okay.
I'd have to check on that.
Okay. Do you think we can get FEMA reimbursement maybe?
That is most likely possible. We were in a declared state of emergency from the state, county, and then we declared our own. So that does activate some FEMA funding. And I don't know I haven't checked to see what the group is, but like for Hurricane Ian, we were group B, which meant we could only do hurricane preparedness or emergency preparedness activities. So all that cleanup afterwards, debris cleanup, we haven't been given the go-ahead yet to seek reimbursement. But with Tropical Storm Nicole that came through, I think we were already in that group where we can look at some recovery efforts.
Okay. And then the last question would be, I saw another bullet that talked about an inventory of pipes in the ground. I assume that's at the treatment facility itself, or is that everywhere?
No, sir, that's the entire city.
Okay, that would be good, because I was talking to some people and they were saying, yeah, my meter is over here, but that it goes to the house that's over there, and everything is kind of accrued over time and got a little bit, mixed up. And so it would be good to get an inventory while we have still the staff that has the historical knowledge on staff.
Absolutely. So, and right now we've got, I don't want to call it a hodgepodge, but we've got different ages of pipes in the ground. So that means that there's also different materials that were used depending on when that pipe was put in the ground.
Okay.
I think Danielle,
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Mr. Chair. No, if you'd like to continue.
I think our chief financial officer had something.
Oh, I had a question about the inventory completion. Is that, something that our staff is going to complete, or is it something that we would have to have a consulting group help us with?
So,
Massive undertaking.
one, it's
Well, I
a
know
big
it is, but-
undertaking, but to get useful and meaningful data, because we would have, someone outside collect that data, because one, we don't have the equipment to get, and the expertise, but we want something that has, something that one has it that is somewhat accurate, in space, but also be able to collect elevation data and things like that, that can be used to give us better decisions down the line, that one we can use for modeling or capacity, remaining life, whether we're evaluating future development or redevelopment, as the case may be. So we want to be able to, if we're going out there, collect it once and not have to go out and collect it 3 or 4 times to get other data. Let's get that now, get that useful and meaningful data, and get it to an accuracy that'll allow us to use it multiple times.
And can that piggyback on any of the other, like, with our Dewberry ongoing
Yeah,
contract?
So
Yeah.
that's the point of continuing services contracts is.
Yeah,
Right.
but that we can include that service. or
It
that
would be a
Yes.
part of
task
that
order.
knowledge.
It would be a
It'd be a supplemental agreement, and ideally, the way I envision this is this also help build our GIS system for the collection system, so then we'll even have better mapping and things like that.
Thank you.
Messenger. Thank you. So to piggyback off of what Vice Mayor Chin was saying, Stefan, you brought up the surface level discharge and the consent, unfunded mandate rather, by the state of Florida and how we're looking to address that. Can you and Jim talk about that a little more for people's general knowledge base? It's my understanding that we're looking at some type of deep injection system that would, and we would partner with our local sister cities on, or there's other solutions potentially available, but can you talk more about that?
Yeah,
Timelines for that?
Yeah, Councilor Messenger, I don't want to back us into a corner for saying, this is what we're going to do. Everything's on the table right now.
Right.
So.
I was bringing that up as an example that was presented to us in prior meetings.
Sure. So it's Senate Bill 64, is that?
Senate Bill 64.
64, so, as I mentioned earlier, we are meeting with, as a beaches community, to see what we can do together, since we also share a common outfall of our existing wastewater facilities, so, after each one, so there's so many pieces to this puzzle. And so the city of Jacksonville Beach, Neptune Beach, and Atlantic Beach, after we treat our wastewater, we all go into a common pipe where we have a common outfall for our effluent treated sanitary sewer. And that goes out into the intercoastal waterway. So we're already working together essentially with what we've got for our wastewater treatment. So it just makes sense that with this Senate Bill 64 mandate, that we're also still communicating and working together to find a solution. And as I said, anything is on the table, from deep well injection to reverse osmosis, different types of processes, but these are all very, very expensive to do. Jim can talk a little more about it.
May I add that you have already approved a supplemental agreement with Jones Edmund Associate that will help us look at and evaluate some of those alternatives that he's talking about, that there's a myriad of options on the table. And they're going to be kind of evaluating some of those options and kind of synthesizing those in some kind of technical memorandum or whatever. They're going to provide a deliverable to us that kind of evaluates that. The state, to your point, the state kind of said, hey, we had to submit something, and that's something that was before we could get to, had a timeline that was before we could get to a planning effort. Although we did push back and say, hey, we need more time to plan, they said we've got to submit something to them, but we could modify that plan anytime along the way. So whatever we have submitted to the DEP as the state and said this is what we're going to do for now, we can modify that plan at any time along the way. And so that gave us opened up so that we can get the time to go through that planning effort with Jones Edmonds and Associates and evaluate these other alternatives. And some of those things might be, getting out to public access reuse, deep well injection that you mentioned, might be a combined, going to direct potable or indirect potable, ASR. There's a myriad of things. Maybe we can work something out with JEA where we're sending some of our effluent to JEA, and they could use it for their public access reuse or things like that. So there's several things that can be considered, that we're gonna work with Jones Edmonds over the next year.
So to put this, why did we choose Jones Edmonds for that piece of the puzzle? They're also working with Atlantic Beach and Jacksonville Beach as one of their consulting engineers. So it just made sense, since they already have those connections with our sister cities, that they're gonna work together with us. And again, that was continuing services contracts that we got into, I believe, towards the end of 2021.
I think we entered this supplemental agreement, not this, 2022.
We got into it recently, so. Competitive bid process.
Oh, you mean the GEC? GEC was 2021.
Perfect, thank you. So, I guess where it's important to note, we're using Joan Edmonds not to duplicate efforts, because our sister cities are utilizing that. So there's a cost savings effort related to that consulting being hired. And two, that a lot of these major planning efforts have only been undertaken in the last few years. So we don't have that historical building blocks to add upon. It's kind of, you're creating the whole thing all at once. So Jim, you and your team, City Hall, Stephen, should be commended on working to get all these things together. That shouldn't be understated. I'd like to see, as we continue to move this ball forward, that when we have budgets, constructions, contingencies, these items, we break out and can show, hey, we've received a 25% match from St. John's River Water Management District with a not to exceed, and show where those kind of funding sources are coming from. Because I believe there's a lot of concern and angst that every time you see a budget that's 100% tax dollars with, it's all tax dollars, but Neptune Beach ad valorem tax dollars, or, certain things, or our water sewer fee basis, and not, hey, we've received 25% from an outside agency or multiple outside agencies. So I think that's very helpful to see those components in relation to our overall budgeting, because I know that's been a topic of conversation and misinformation as of late. So I'd love to see that kind of broken out more for everyone's edification, but this is very good, and I know Jim and his team and everyone working with Dewberry's made some great strides with our wastewater in the last year or so. So it's appreciated.
That's
Please.
your request, just so you know, as we are transitioning to Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler also has the project accounting function, which is exactly what you're requesting. And that's usually in municipalities, when we take on projects, we'll have the project accounting, and it'll show where the sources are from, what the expenditures are, and what the budget is from. So as we transition into that software, that should be something that will be readily available to provide, for requests from council or et cetera. So just want to let you know that that is something that we're working towards.
Fantastic. Yeah, I know Tyler was an investment citywide to create a greater degree of efficiency and transparency, and COVID slowed down that implementation process. Do you have a timeline on when you built, or a rough timeline when you believe the finance department will be able to be fully implemented? Because I know there's a lot of historical data that has to be ported over.
Right. Well, prior to that, Stephen and his team prior to me, they did start a lot of that process. We actually have a call on Monday to map out our subsequent timeline. We have since touched base with Tyler. We had a 3-day training to discuss all of the information we had, all of the modules we're going to use, and what do we need going forward. So it's my expectation early next year that we should be fully functional. So it'll be mid-fiscal year, but in time to start these, infrastructure projects, you know, that we can start that new process with the new infrastructure projects based on Stephanie's timelines I provided earlier.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, and, I think that as we are now ready to start moving forward, one of the biggest things that we need to know is where the dollars are that we're actually going to go for. I know that Jones Edmonds is doing a great job and have been, and they're also gonna be doing some lobbying for us as we move forward, which is a great asset. But as we start looking, committee members, as we start looking at where these dollars are, how we're gonna go after everything from grants to requests, we've gotta know where they are. We've gotta know what we're looking for, what we're asking for, and that would be, a lot of that has been kind of untapped from us, and I could be wrong on this, has been just Duval County asking Duval County and going for the Duval County dollars that, quite frankly, I think we deserve out here. And, because we are part of the county, and I don't think that we have received, in fact, I know we haven't received as much as we could, should, and would like to pursue that pretty heavily as we go into the next year, not just from the legislators, but, we used to have, you know, lobbyists, consultants that would help us in identifying, and you know, I'm kind of, and this is throwing it out to you guys, but I think we need to get with someone who is going to help us to look into specifics. Specific dollars for specific things that are there, that are available to municipalities, to cities, and start moving in that direction.